I was tempted to play, what's the Army play when someone dies? Taps, but I know you don't like Shtickla, but I
No,
was tempted.
I don't like the shtick. Yeah.
Yeah, but I was going to do it anyway to make you feel uncomfortable. But I thought that would be appropriate since we died with the Bills.
We did die with the Bills, and it was so funny because the Bills came back and they still blew it. That's the hilarious part. Like they made the comeback and still lost, but I had a bad feeling about them, but not bad enough. I mean, the pot odds you said weren't even good in your pool. Like they didn't even really
Our pool.
Your pool. I'm distancing myself from this.
Yeah,
my pool. I almost won my pool, but that's a whole different thing.
Yeah, we'll get into that. But just to recap here, we lost week 7 with the Bills. The whole idea was fade Seattle because, some pools were saying they were close to 60%. We were figuring 50%, it wasn't even close. It was like 35, and then the Bills were like 25, which, I mean, I don't even know how you begin to figure that out. I guess you could, but it is what it is. And you remember when you emailed, I was really pissed. I normally don't get pissed about this kind of stuff. I was so angry because the pot odds fade didn't even work in our favor, but we did the right thing. And I'm going to say it, Chris Liss, we deserved to win.
Yeah, deserves got nothing to do with it. Doesn't matter. And we didn't deserve to win that game. We just deserved to win because we did the right thing. But you don't deserve to win. You just can live with yourself. And here's the interesting thing about it. In my home league, there were 8 teams left, one of which was me. And I faded Seattle, but I didn't have the Bills. So I used them last week. I had the Dolphins available last week too. Had I used the Dolphins last week, I would have definitely used the Bills this week in my home pool and been out, but I didn't look ahead. So I was like, oh shit, I used the Bills. So who am I going to pivot to? And I had this whole thing where I was like, Ravens. And then I asked Sasha, Ravens or Browns. She doesn't know anything, but I just couldn't decide. The Browns were slightly more favored. She said Browns. I said, fine, like a nutless monkey. And then immediately the Ravens are up like 35-0. I'm like, I'm such an idiot. And now I'm like living and dying in this Browns game. Watson's out in like the first quarter. The Colts are definitely outplaying them. I'm like, this is a huge mistake. Turns out 2 things. One, I had used the Ravens in week 1. So this whole drama in my mind was pointless because I couldn't have used the Ravens. Secondly, the Browns won because they made 2 54-yard and 1 58-yard field goal. They blocked a field goal from the Colts and returned it like 50 yards. They scored a defensive touchdown, and even so, they still needed 2 garbage penalties to win to get first and goal from the 1, and it took them 4 downs, and Kareem Hunt on 4th down barely got the ball to the front of the goal line plane. I mean, it was the weakest win I've ever had. And as I said, Alan, deserves got nothing to do with it. It was a great win. I did a great job taking the Bills against the Giants 2 weeks ago, going against my own team. A great job taking the Browns, a brilliant pick against the Colts. And because the Bills had lost, had Seattle lost, I would have won the whole pool, like $2,300 right then and there. Yeah. But of course, Seattle won pretty easily.
Yeah, I was saying it wasn't even close. And, all these, I mean, this is Survivor though, right? I was so mad. I might've been drinking a little, who knows, and it just exacerbated the anger. And the other thing is you said you had a bad feeling about the Bills. I was listening to a podcast about player props, nothing to do with, because I was, I like to see who some of the experts like. Again, not just because I'm going to follow them blindly, but I like the logic behind it sometimes. Right. And they got into a conversation about Survivor. And then the last thing he said was, he's like, yeah, he was talking about pot odds, similar to how you play Survivor. It's like, oh, okay, this guy really does know somebody. He's like, but this week I'm not doing it because I got a bad feeling about the Bills. I was like, oh no. He said,
it's funny. We didn't talk about it again. Like I had a bad feeling. The problem was, and this is the problem with the market and why it's so dangerous to look at anything except your own instincts, is that when the line's 8.5 for the Bills and the next best pivot is 3.5 with the Browns, which was a horrible pivot. I mean, I took years off my life watching that game, but it's very hard to say, I have a bad feeling about the Bills. Let's pivot to this 3.5 point favorite, right? It's no problem to pivot to a 7 point favorite, but to pivot to a 3.5 point favorite, that takes some serious balls. I mean, you have to be like, I don't care at all about what the market thinks. I trust myself more.
Yeah, the pivot wouldn't have been there. The pivot would have been the nutless monkey pivot onto Seattle.
Well, that's not a pivot. That's just saying, well, first of all, in our pool, well, now you know something about your pool. I think I owe you $1,250.
Well, you're going to owe me a lot more than that with all the bets I'm crushing you on.
We'll see, because your guy's on IR now. That you
needed it. You needed the
injuries are part of it. What's the other one that I have that's bad?
Zeke versus Ramondre touchdowns.
You're up 2-1, I think. I think you're up 2-1.
Huge.
Double. You're double. He's doubling him up. So I may win that one.
But you were saying, like, when I was saying about, you learned something about our pool.
Yeah, it's really normie. It's really square. So it's like, they're just taking, like, it's even more. You'd think the squares would just take Seattle, but they're even more square, where they're like, I'm saving Seattle, or I want to, I mean, there's no rhyme or reason. So, you don't do the pot. It's like poker, right? Like, you don't do some crazy plays and bluffs like on a shit table, right? You got to be like, this guy might call with anything. Like, I'm not going to bluff him. I'm just going to, like, fold the bad hands and play the good hands and just take his money. Like, I don't want to get all, clever with this guy. He doesn't know how to play poker. And I think it's the same thing in some of these survivor pools. Like, these guys may take anything. So don't just take the team likely to win and play it super straight up, because that's like the most basic strategies. Just take the biggest favorite every week.
The way, it's funny, I was using an analogy too, because I came to a similar conclusion that, maybe we're overthinking, because sometimes, I play in a lot of fantasy leagues. I know you do as well, but sometimes, like, when I'm playing like in a home league with my friends that really don't do any studying until like 2 weeks before, I'm like taking all like these like super hyped up sleepers. I don't need to do that, because no one's picking them in the 8th and 9th round like they do in the best ball. So I just take like the guys I know are going to produce, and I'll get all those guys at the end. You're almost like outthinking yourself. You're not in like an expert league.
Yeah, that really is something. I had the home baseball league, same thing. It's like you think you're playing against like people playing 11-dimensional chess, and they're just doing the simple thing. And there's guys getting taken that you're like, damn it, those are the guys I wanted that are usually there in round 5, but they're just gone, right? Because it's my home league, and they're not even looking at ADP. They're just taking who they like. And I think that's the case here. I mean, in my home league, my home pool, they're one level above this pool. They all took Seattle except one guy who had the Bills. So it was, when I saw the result, I was really happy. I was like, okay, I've got the Browns, and okay, you've got, I've got a chance to win this thing today when the Bills lost. And that's all you can hope for, is like, if it's like, I had a 23% chance just to win my pool that afternoon. I once like 10 years ago, I was at the sports bar, pretty wasted, and it was like week 11, and I'd been doing really well in Survivor. And I had these like $200,000 pools and $50,000 pools. And had the scores held up at halftime, I would have won like the 50,000. I would have been down like the final 10, the 200,000, and I would have won my home pool. All of them reversed in the second half. I had already survived, but I got wiped out in all of them like the following week. But I just, Survivor, it's the best and it's the worst. It's the worst and it's the best for the same reason.
Yeah, it's the best until it's the worst.
Yeah.
I did a very stupid drunken mistake. I'm almost like ashamed to admit this on a video, but I was just doing like a little Miami versus Philly money line bet, and I meant to hit $40. Guess what I hit?
400.
Yeah.
Nice. Real man hits 400 on purpose.
Right. Because I told you I definitely had a little extra cocktail. So
did you have Miami?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, no, good. Money line,
Yeah.
So I realized I did the mistake, and there's no like calling the book and saying, oops, I didn't.
But you could bet the other side and undo it and just pay the rake.
Right. So I was
only a nutless monkey would do that.
Exactly. So I was like, let it ride. And yeah.
Now you wish you had done that. Well, so that's funny. I actually really like the Eagles, and I should have pivoted to them in Survivor. Miami's soft. Like, Miami is the type of team that goes crazy against weak teams, but I was like, they're soft. Like, when they play a good team, they get beat. So
What would you have done there, by the way? I'm just curious. Now, you can, in hindsight, but you made the mistake.
I would have let it ride, probably.
Yeah, because it's like, all right, because then all of a sudden you're looking at that payout. You're like, oh, $980 if I win. Oh, this is pretty good. They should have one more like, are you sure button when you're making a bet. Like, especially the algorithm. If like I'm betting 30s and 40s and maybe an occasional 50. And
what if you put 4,000? I mean, like you hit 2 zeros, you'd be like, oh, then you would have had to nutless monkey it. And
but that's above my credit limit. So at least I'm protected there. I put the credit limit, like, you could set
1,000,
your limits. Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Even I didn't want that, the second parachute not opening.
Real man doesn't have a credit limit. That's ridiculous.
Very good. Very good. Fantasy wise, I'm starting to see a lot of people not setting their lineups anymore.
It's that bad already.
Yeah. The 0 in whatever teams or the 1 in whatever teams. I don't care that they're not setting their lineup, only that I need the other guy that's playing them to lose. So is there a solution to this? Would you be, are you in favor, like, say I'm the commissioner, just taking commissioner control and commissioner setting their lineup? Like, what's the solution here? Because this is happening in a lot of leagues that I'm in.
Well, the problem is once it's done once, right? That means somebody got to win. Okay. Last week because of that. Now you start going forward. What about that guy who should have lost last week? I think you got to make a rule for next year. I think it's the best you can do. Kick that guy out of the league or tell him, you will be kicked out. If I have to do this, I will, but then you'll also be kicked out and you won't, you won't be invited back. I mean, there is some responsibility. It's even worse in baseball in some ways. Oh, it's worse in both, but baseball, it happens all the time. And so I always would do is draft for average ERA and WHIP, because the guy with the zeros in his lineup is not getting hurt in average ERA and WHIP. He's getting hurt in all the counting categories. Right. And you would pass those 3 guys. You get 3 free points in every counting category just by trying for the last 2 months. But that guy might have an 8 or 9 in WHIP. And if you have a bad WHIP, you're stuck. And so it was like, there was like a little premium on those average categories because of quitting. Football is just random, right? You don't know whether you're going to be playing the quitter or somebody else's. So there's nothing you can do strategically, but commission would have to make that rule in advance.
Yeah. There's gotta be a one button fix for that too. Like if like the softwares have to do like a button where they could just click one button, not have to set their lineup, it just automatically sets best projected lineup,
right?
Something like
but
that.
I mean, it's a deeper problem than that because they stop making moves and then they don't even they have a guy like Jameson Williams and they have
Devontae Parker.
They have guys like that, or they have guys that are hurt or just like have lost the, Cam Akers. You're just like putting in random guys almost at this, and it's like it doesn't make any difference. So you need to make free agent moves too in football.
Yeah, I mean, I'm at the point now where I'm so jaded where like I'll do without that. It's like the dynasty leagues where you're playing like losing's incentivized. I fixed it in the leagues I commission, and again, I want to get back into Survivor a second, but tell me what you think of this. Like the 6 teams that don't make the playoffs in our dynasty league, there's no advantage to finishing last or 7th. It's a complete lottery for the bottom 6.
Right. It's what the leagues did. The NBA did,
Well, they do a weighted lottery, so there's still incentive to go lower.
Right. So,
but it's straight lottery.
Right. Okay. So there's no incentive. I mean, you should make it that there's like a penalty. I mean, we have this in the staff league where, so like everybody pays, I don't know, I dropped out, but like, $70 or whatever for the entry fee. But if you finish like in the bottom 5, like the bottom 5, the 5th worst guy pays like $100 and the 6th like 120, and it goes down. So like you're paying more money. It's just like if you were a team tanking in real sports, you'd lose attendance, right. And you'd actually have to pay to tank. So I think that's a good policy. Just like where like if you're really bad, you have to pay extra.
Yeah. The one thing that similar to that I tinkered with, I like your method better, but it was regardless of that, is that you pay per loss. So let's say the entry fee is $100 and you end up 12-5 and it's $5 a loss, right? Or whatever it is. So you pay per loss.
Okay. That's good. I think testicular electric shock is also a good one. I think that you never have any recalcitrance when you got that.
Yeah.
policy.
But some of us do that for enjoyment.
That's right. I forgot about you. Yeah. We got to get a different one for you.
People have come for Survivor Talk. So you're still in how many pools now?
I didn't check that shitty online, but that online thing is such crap. I can't believe I just need a better interface.
Just do more entries on my
next
thing.
Time I will. Next time I will.
Because you can control it yourself. Run your pool.com.
It works. It works, I guess. So I think I have 2 left. I think I had 2 Bills left, which died, but then I had 2 Browns. So I think I have 2 left. And then I have my home pool, which I'm down to 7 people. I mean, it's only like 300 something per person now. The equity, it's not like a lot, but it's once you get into 300 and there's only 7 left, you're like, I could win $2,000. It's in sight. So that one's good. I mean, there's no Circa, which is obviously the one I really love doing, but yeah. So I got 3 pools, 3 left. So
So, I told you the guy that the pool person that I do, he does 2 pools. He does a 25 and 100. So if you want to, up your stakes a little, you could do, but you should do it on your own as well as our entry. This way
Right.
you're
I mean, I would do like, I did
10
$10 ones, but I do $100 ones,
Yeah, well, whatever it is. All right. This week, in your article that you do every week for Survivor, can be found on realmansports.com. I recommend everyone goes over there, signs up for that, and checks out all of Chris's content. You see right now, and again, pooled percentages are a little noisy, but Chargers are going to be about 35%, 36% rostered. Ravens at 17, Lions at 17, Dolphins at 7, Bills at 6, Eagles at 4, and it goes down from there. If you have the Chargers, you trust the Chargers in Survivor. I mean, that seems like totally counterintuitive.
The Chargers. I mean, you can't even bet the Chargers. That's how bad it is. I mean, Survivor's a whole other level. I actually think it's a good spot for them. They just lost to the Chiefs. The Bears came off a big win. I kind of like them as a bounce back at home, but I like the Lions the most. I think the Lions getting destroyed by the Ravens last week. They're going to be up for this game, and then the Raiders are, I think, total garbage. Like maybe the worst team in the league right now. And so I think I'm going Lions. That was just my first instinct, and I don't think I'm going to mess with it.
And everyone has the Chargers. So if you want to just play the largest favorite, that's fine as well. Yeah, most people have the Lions too. I don't think I was looking down there. There was no spot to take. There was maybe one other spot where the Lions were like a good pick,
right?
But they weren't in like the circle of trust as they are, I guess, before last week.
Right.
So that's the key there. Dolphins. What if Tyreek doesn't play? Because there's some talk there that he may miss the game.
Yeah, no HA, no Tyreek is kind of like, okay, those are like, now they're just a fast team. They're not like this all-world greatest show on turf team. It hurts a little, but I mean, I think you could take them. I think it's not like crazy, but I just feel like the line, I don't know, the Lions just jumped out at me is like, this is so clear. Like the Raiders are a doormat. I probably regret saying this because it's NFL, but Raiders are a doormat. And the Patriots, like, Bill Belichick, he may be toast or he may not. He just got a contract extension. But what he used to do really well was make adjustments in season. His team wouldn't be that good or it'd be pretty good. And then he'd figure out, oh, this is the problem. And then he would fix it. And they just won, against Buffalo. And I like that they won after the Bills came back. Like, so that, that's a really good psychological thing to come back. The better team comes back and you're dead and you still win. So I would be a little nervous. Miami's a little soft. So I feel like if Belichick has seen something where it's like, oh yeah, we can rough these guys up and especially if Tyreek's out, take away Waddle, rough them up. Mostert's got an ankle too. I mean, I probably wouldn't do the Dolphins, even though the point spread's high because they score so many points. That's the reason the spread's high.
Just one more recap on our pool, which we're knocked out of 400. We started with 3,100 entries, 1,500 people, 1,600 buyback, 442 people, including us, were knocked out last week. 392 people still remained. Had we been one of those 392, would you have gotten a little more excited?
392 and what was the
3130 on the entries?
3130 for $25, right? So 3130 at $25 is what? It's 60. It's about 80,000, 85,000, something like that.
Well, the pool was like 78 and change.
Okay, 78 and change. So then we're talking about
just use 80
divided, right? 80,000 divided by, let's say 400. Let's make it easy, right? So what do we at 200? 200 ahead. Is that right?
Yeah.
$200. I mean, I'm a little excited about my pool and I've got 300 something equity. So, you start to care once you have multi-hundreds in there.
The 1 week I was going to get you to care.
You start to care. I mean, the circuit is 1,000 at week 1. That's how much equity you have,
Right. But
there's even overlay and there's overlay. So you have like more than 1,000 immediately. I don't know if there's overlay this year. There's overlay the year I was in it.
I prepared. Do you have any other Survivor thoughts? Who are you taking this week in your most important pool?
Lions. I'm taking Lions in all 3. I think I'm not going to diversify.
All right.
And then if they lose, I'm just going to stop writing the column. I told people, I'm not doing this for RotoWire. I don't have like some, if I'm out, I'm out. You can, if you're a paid subscriber, you can email me and I'll probably respond. But I once I'm out, I'm not going to make myself write a column about it if I don't care about it.
All right. Well, number one question on my list this week on my show outline is Sam Darnold is going to be back in play again this week. For anyone who hasn't heard, Brock Purdy experienced concussion symptoms on the plane ride home. He's not playing. Sam Darnold, I know you famously or infamously had the debate with the spreadsheet bros if Barkley or Darnold was a better pick. I think that's already been solved. But you got to like Sam Darnold if you're in a 2-quarterback league here.
Oh, of course, 2-quarterback league. You start a nutless monkey,
Right, but exactly. But would you
Trevor Siemian even?
Very good, very good. Is he a top 12 quarterback now with everybody playing, given all the weapons he has? And no Debo. Remember, there's no Debo this week.
Yeah, I don't rank him, but I would say no. I think that if you're the Niners, they're playing the Bengals who can score. It's not like they're playing a scrub. I'd say they're going to hand it off but McCaffrey's been banged up. I don't know if they want to give him 25 carries. And
they don't stop giving him 25 carries. Right, nobody gets another carry. That's it. It's only him.
Yeah. And then, but I don't know if they can do that. And Debo, is kind of important. And, the thing about Darnold is he makes good. He's just like Zach Wilson. It's so funny that's my comp for him. Like he's a good athlete. He can scramble pretty well. He can run. He can make the throws, but it's just like the soul-crushing interception. The decision-making is not there. And so, he could be okay in fantasy. I mean, I don't think he's top 12, but, 2 QB league, obviously. Anybody's good in 2 QB league.
Yeah. And so would you start like Darnold or Minshew this week? Minshew had a monster
I know,
game.
he had a huge game.
Yeah.
I'd probably go Minshew, but I don't like the matchup with the Saints. I think that'll probably be like a lower scoring game.
Right, because the defense is good. Now, last week I told you I benched Minshew for Tyrod Taylor. I mean, Taylor was fine.
He did fine, yeah, he did fine.
Yeah.
I mean, the Browns had, what we thought was a great defense. It was fluke though. I mean, that Michael Pittman 70-yard touchdown was just like, oh wait, no one's guarding Josh Downs. That touchdown, same thing. It was like a blown coverage. So he had 2 long touchdowns. Then he ran a couple in, which isn't really his thing. I mean, it wasn't like, oh, you should have seen that coming. That was totally bizarre.
Yeah, I was trying to set you up for a transition about Tyrod or Daniel Jones, who, I mean, isn't it pretty obvious right now that for fantasy, you'd probably rather have Tyrod if you rostering and starting any of the pass catching options for the Giants, including Darren Waller.
I don't think so. I watched a lot of Daniel Jones last year. I also watched the second half against Arizona where he just lit it up. And I just think what happened was he does hold the ball too long. I mean, he does that. That was a problem. He wasn't as bad last year with it, but in that game against Seattle, he held it too long a couple of times. But guys were just in his face. He's trying to make something happen. I think they got the offensive line sorted in the last couple of weeks. Like, it's not good, but it's like an NFL offensive line. And that's just a cohesion thing with new guys and injured guys and all of that. And it just so happened on Tyrod Taylor's watch. Now, Taylor has also done a better job getting rid of the ball, but it just kind of coincided. I don't think it was that, oh, Daniel Jones is terrible and this guy's decent. And so now, look, it's fine. It was Daniel Jones. I think that's like just correlation does not equal causation. So I would way rather have Daniel Jones, real life and fantasy. I think Tyrod Taylor's okay. I mean, I think he's like one of the best backups to have. I think he could easily start over some of the scrubby starters. But I still think Daniel Jones is pretty good. And if it was Taylor in that Seattle game, maybe he would have taken 2 fewer sacks. He would have taken, 9 instead of 11, but I don't think it would have made a big difference.
Yeah. I know you drafted Bijan Robinson in a bunch of your leagues. Listen, I wasn't upset about it as everybody else was, but what's your take on Bijan-gate? Now, just to anyone who hadn't heard, Bijan Robinson wasn't declared or put on the injury report, didn't play a snap until the 4th quarter. And then the team later said that he had, I don't know, was it a headache or they said he was sick or something like that. So not so much on how do you feel that you put Bijan in your lineup, but do you think that this is something that the NFL should look into? Because,
look, you could get hurt the first play of the game, right? That happens sometimes and you just lose the guy. I mean, I won my prime time last year, partly because the guy who was in first place had Lamar Jackson, who got hurt in like the first couple plays. And then he was in first, but that was a 0, like from his quarterback. And that was huge. And stuff like that happens. If it was like happening all the time with Arthur Smith, maybe they should do something. But
did you see him on the podium? Did you see he was like dismissive though? He was very dismissive instead of saying,
it's like I kind of feel like fuck the media. Like if I'm the NFL, I do care about fantasy and betting because that's like, you know, that's real. Like that's like your fans are doing that. And so you need a reliable report, but like the media, like they're just tools, most of them. I mean, who cares?
But
and you're the coach and you make the decisions. And, you know, if a player, if this is true, exactly how they said it was, that he had a bad headache that he couldn't shake and that they, you know, he couldn't go in, and they found out right as the game was starting. I mean, you know, who cares what the media thinks? It's like, yeah, that was just what happened. It's unfortunate. And that's that. I mean,
well, Arthur Smith, you know, I mean, I think that it's at this point known that the NFL is driven, like you said, by gambling and by fantasy. But the problem is, you know, about Arthur Smith, his father owns FedEx. You know, he's a billionaire.
I didn't know that. No,
yeah, his father, Fred Smith, or I think that's his name, owns FedEx. So he is a billionaire. So he could tell you basically, go F off. I don't care about fantasy or this, that, because he's well taken care of. You know what I'm saying? Like,
well, all the coaches are, but I mean, every coach pretty much.
If billionaire, though, is different than millionaire.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a coach and you're making, you know, a few mil a year for a few years in the league, and before that as a coordinator making, I don't know, $1 million or whatever they make, or 800,000. I mean, hopefully you saved a little money, that you're not like just completely at the mercy of, you know, having to suck up to whoever. Like you know, come on, like
you get used to a lifestyle, though, you know.
Yeah, maybe, but I mean, you know, that's I don't know. I think like I'm more like, look, if the coach has to kowtow to the advertising and the DraftKings of the world and all that stuff, it's kind of like, you know, he's got to be a coach and be like, look, I make the personnel choices I want. If the NFL has a complaint about the injury report filing, they can make that complaint and he can show there was no injury until the day of, and then that's the end of it. I mean, what else, you know what I mean? Like, what else is he supposed to be doing? Like sucking up to the media? I mean, that was his choice. Now, there might be something else to the story. Like, why did Bijan have these headaches? Was he out?
Hungover?
Was he partying? Yeah. I mean, was he? You know, is it a side effect from a certain medication? I mean, why is a perfectly healthy 22-year-old guy have headaches so bad that he suddenly can't play in a football game? And you know, people do have migraines. Percy Harvin used to have migraines, you know, if it was a migraine, but he didn't say it was a migraine. You know, it's just a bit like, we don't really have a lot of information on what it was, right? Like it's very vague, right? Like, it's like, oh, did he suffer from migraines in college? I think Percy Harvin did, like when he was having that problem. Is there a history of it? Like, what the hell happened? And we don't really know. It's like, did he party the night before? We don't know. Was Arthur Smith, was there any doghouse type of situation where he was mad about how he practiced? We don't know. Right. But unless Arthur Smith, you know, lied on the injury report, or there was some evidence that like he was perfectly healthy and he just chose to deceive people for whatever reason, I don't think you can really get on Arthur Smith for it.
Oh man. All right. I want to circle back. This is not dunking on you by any means. I just really want to just take your temperature, bend over.
Okay. I don't know.
Yeah. Do you remember that? We used to take the thermometer up the ass. Did you ever take that?
No, a real man doesn't do that.
You got your phone?
Heather's trying to call on. I just texted her podcast.
Okay,
don't call
gotcha,
me. Yeah.
Gotcha. You should set up a shortcut, P, for podcast.
Yeah.
You know, yeah. I can't believe as kids that used to happen to
us. Shit, she said emergency. Hold on.
All right, I'll talk through it.
Okay, talk to you.
Yeah.
It's more entertaining anyway.
All right. Well, what I was going to ask Chris Liss was some of the players that were starting this week in fantasy football that we hadn't last week, and specifically at the tight end position, Dalton Kincaid. We see all the tight ends come out of nowhere. The rookie tight ends that usually don't produce for a few years are producing this year. Sam Laporta, you know, if you're in a dynasty league, man, he's tight end 1 in a lot of consensus rankings. And I was actually challenged on that, saying, no, he's not tight end 1. He needs to prove it a few more years. I said, okay. Who is tight end 1? And then a lot of people say, well, it's still Kelsey, which is fair, or it's Mark Andrews. I said, oh, I have Mark Andrews on my roster. I'm going to, why don't you give me Sam Laporta and I'll give you Mark Andrews? And of course, the answer is no, they won't do it, right? So that's the real litmus test here. Will you, if you're telling me Sam Laporta is not the long-term tight end 1, then trade me for him. Everything okay there?
Okay? I mean, it's super annoying. So we got our Portuguese citizenship, but for Sasha, you know, first the parents apply, then you got to get the kid. So the appointment Heather made like a month and a half out, you know, once we got that, was in this place called Setúbal, which is 40 minutes from Lisbon. And so she brought Sasha there, took her out of school, brought her there, to get this and canceled like all these parties for Halloween. And Sasha was so pissed. We're like, dual citizenship is worth this. Trust me, we need to get this. Is the point we can get. And she just said, you need to be here too as the father.
Ooh.
And I'm like, I mean, I don't know. She said that they said I didn't. And it's like, so
do you have to leave right now?
No, she's like, I was like, I'm in the middle of a podcast and I don't have a car. She has the car. I'd have to like Uber 40 minutes each way. I don't think so. We'll just go.
So this is, it's mandatory to get the citizenship, or she just wants you there as the father?
No. It's mandatory for Sasha to get hers. You need both parents. It's super annoying.
Can't she just grab some dude off the street and say, this is the father?
And just fake sign it? I know that would be good. Probably need ID though.
Right. Okay. So we can wrap this in short order if you want. I mean,
hold on. Let me just call her back. It's just fucking annoying. This whole thing. It's like I gotta run my life on this Portuguese bureaucration. It just pisses me off. But hold on, let me call her.
All right. Well, I'll continue my conversation with the people.
Keep going. You're doing great.
Yep. You're doing great. He hasn't heard a word I said. So I'm just curious. Anyone in the chat also, if you have a take on the tight end thing, this has been like a heated debate. Basically, who do you think is the best long-term tight end in fantasy football? Is it going to be 35-year-old Travis Kelce, or is it one of the rookies, Sam Laporta, Mark Andrews, one of those guys? So put it in the chat if you are listening here. Other notes that I have here. Breece Hall, man, I was fading Breece Hall. I know many of you also were in the preseason because he had that catastrophic Week 7 ACL, right? And okay, already I see people saying Laporta. Good job, Kevin. I agree with you there. And usually players don't return. They return to play in about 1 year, which put Breece Hall at the beginning of the season. But then they're not really themselves. We see them have a slow ramp up, which puts them about, week is 18 months to play. So it's about week 10. I learned a lesson by fading these injury guys. Not that I'm not going to continue to fade the ACL guys, but we're seeing now that Breece Hall is we don't like to use the term league winner, but he kind of is one. Is that fade the injury guys if there's no discount or a small discount. If someone's going to give you Breece Hall in the 4th and 5th round, I've come around saying that is a worthy gamble in fantasy football. And right now, I don't think is there any other running back that you'd rather have in fantasy other than Christian McCaffrey than Breece Hall? Like if we started today, right? Like it's a fresh draft with all the players. Your whole league is just doing a start over. The running back rankings would be what? It'd be Christian McCaffrey 1. It would be Breece Hall, probably the second one, right? I mean, can you think of anyone else? I mean, right now we saw Bijan's basically been playing at his floor. Jonathan Taylor is more or less in, not a timeshare. I don't want to call it that, but he is somewhat of he's seating carries.
You guys hear me say throw a fucking fit?
No.
Oh, anyway, no, she can't do it. They said I have to be there in 2 minutes. So there's no way.
What I was talking about with the audience here was is the running back rankings if we started all over, and basically how I faded Breece Hall. And, I always fade the injury guy, Chris Liss, but I think my new edict is going to be fade the injury guy unless you're getting the real discount. And it's an elite player.
Should always be that, because if, Breece Hall's going in the 6th, and if he would have been a 1st or 2nd,
he would have been the first overall pick in a lot of
leagues. Well, then that's a gigantic discount, right? And so that's worth the gamble, right? And well, so that's it.
Other than Christian McCaffrey, like if we started our leagues over today in week 8 and there's no buys or anything like that, who do you think would be the second running back drafted in most leagues?
I haven't looked at what Hall's done that much because I don't have him, but
right.
I mean, now, Kenny Walker's pretty good. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to think who else has been.
Taylor. Bijan's been playing.
Taylor now. Taylor 1 week, everyone's like, oh no, now Taylor. I'm just so pissed about my prime time. Everything went wrong. Like one pick from Taylor, I should have jumped in. That was so obvious. The guy's the 1.1 in 2022, and all you need is the fact that that's a bullshit contract ankle injury, and he's coming back in 4 weeks, and that if he does, you're going to win the league. I mean, your 5th round pick is usually crap anyway. 6th round.
Maybe ETN would be the second running back.
ETN, yeah. There's like ETN. I mean, there's like a group, right? A small group of them, like Walker, ETN. Breece Hall.
I mean, the other running backs atop the rankings right now, if you just look at, and obviously some of these guys have fallen off, but Raheem Mostert is up there.
Yeah, Mostert's on the ropes.
Yep. But I knew that going in, it's listen, that was the only, you're referencing the trade I did for Justin Jefferson.
No, you're just being paranoid. I wasn't referencing that.
Pacheco wouldn't be a second running back, but he's coming on. Swift has been, league winnerish.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, like,
Pollard.
Yeah, where you got him. Well, Pollard has not been good, but he still got the role and he still got the skills and he's healthy. So Pollard going forward, could be.
Brees Hall last 2 weeks, Chris Liss, 50 fantasy points, 29 and 20.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
So he would be RB2, right? Him or Etienne right now moving forward?
Yeah, probably ETN, but yeah, either one. I mean,
then it'd be, yeah.
I mean, there's McCaffrey and then a giant gulf between whoever's second, and the running backs aren't the ones really driving it this year. They're not like, besides McCaffrey, it's like, I guess Mostert has really driven a lot of, because he was so cheap too.
Yeah.
But
well, it's right. It's Tyreek Hill. It's Stephon Diggs. It's AJ Brown. And
AJ Brown. I have in one league. So I have one league that's doing well. It's 6-1, but it's like sixth in points, but it's like 40 points out of second or first in one of the onlines. And it's because I got AJ Brown. I mean, every week that dude's putting up like, 25, 30 points.
I took him in. I'm in second place in one of my NFFC leagues, and it's because I reached on AJ Brown at pick 10. I know that's not like really reaching for the NFFC, but that was the point of the year where he was looping around into the second round in a lot of leagues. I wanted to take your temperature. That's how this conversation started on Amon-Ra St. Brown. Are you still in the camp where he's just Jarvis Landry? Or you realize
Jarvis Landry was good? He's got
right, but he never was a first round pick in fantasy.
Yeah, he never was a first
Amon-Ra
round pick.
is.
He was borderline though, Landry. Like he was like early second at his peak.
Sometimes third. Sometimes because people didn't trust him, he was third.
No, his peak though. I mean, he dropped to like the sixth, but like Jarvis was pretty high. I mean, Jarvis. I mean, it's kind of similar. Jarvis caught his second year, he had 110 catches, and his fourth year he had 112 catches. And he only scored 4 touchdowns. How many touchdowns does Amon-Ra have? Like
he's got 3 in 7 games right now.
Okay, 3 in 7 games.
But so let's say he ends up with 7, right? That's better than he's been for his career, and he could end up with 8 or 9. So
we could end up with 6.
Puka Nacua, since Cup's come back, 1 good week, 1 down week, 1 good week. Are they going to trade weeks here, or like is Puka Nacua like a top 12 wide receiver the rest of the way? That's really what
I think he played. It wasn't just that he got production, is that he was really good. He made some amazing catches, and I was watching that game and I was like, wow, this guy's better than I realized. Like he's actually good. He's not just like the guy that Stafford's throwing to. And the Cup is still the number 1, even though he didn't do much last week, but
first time in a long time.
Yeah. It's a long time since Cup was unproductive, but as long as Cup's completely healthy, he's the number 1. But Nacua, I mean, what was Robert Woods, like a top 15 receiver most, at the end of the year?
He was a guy you put in your lineup. You got your 14 points every week.
No. You're underselling Robert Woods. You're underselling him. He was at his peak. I'm going to look this up.
At his peak. Are you talking about his peak with the Rams or his peak?
With the Rams. With the Rams. Yeah, Robert Woods, because he was the guy playing alongside Cup. He had 90 catches, he only had 2 touchdowns. Yeah, maybe he's a little better. What year
was that? 20?
2018 was actually his best because he had 6 touchdowns. 86, 12, 19, and 6. That was his best year. He only had 2 good years really on the Rams, and one of them only had 2 touchdowns. So maybe he's better than Robert Woods, but
definitely. Yeah. And he's a different style of player.
Well, Robert Woods was like, drafted in the 3rd round usually. I think if we're drafting again, Nacua goes like 2-3 turn-ish.
Right.
Probably, somewhere around there. But Cup goes in the 1st round.
Oh yeah. Garrett Wilson or Nacua for rest of the season. That's
Garrett
an easy
Wilson.
call, right?
I think Garrett Wilson.
Whoa, rest of season?
I would, yeah.
Wait a second. Well, explain this, because this is.
I just think Wilson is like maybe the best. Like, I mean, he and like Tyreek Hill, like 2 best receivers in the league, like just talent wise, and like, I don't know. I just think like he's the only game in town. He got his last 3 weeks, 14 targets, then 7 targets, then 12 targets. So the target volume's there. I don't know. I just think, and he's more explosive. I would take Wilson.
All right. Also, tight end landscape. The other one that you and I not debated. I mean, this is not like a debate or anything, but you were a little nervous about taking Travis Kelce anywhere in the top 6 picks, age 34. I mean, obviously at this point he would be a top 4 pick, knowing what you know now for the rest of the season.
But for the rest of the season, but you also lost like a couple of games, right? So like
you did?
It wasn't. Oh no, I mean
you lost the first game.
You lost the first game,
that's
and then that's true. And he even had a touchdown in the bad Detroit game.
Yeah,
so he hasn't really had a dud besides that, I mean, it was.
When you say the Detroit game, which one? We talking? Oh,
no,
right.
The Detroit game he didn't play. Okay,
Right.
and then the second week he had 4 catches for 26 yards, but he got in the end zone. Kind of salvaged it. I'd forgotten with the touchdown. I was like,
but that's what he does. But that's what he does. He gets in the end zone.
Well, he also usually gets like what he did last week was like career high, but like he's usually getting like 8 or 9 catches for 100 yards. Also, it's not just the touchdowns.
It was his first week back, though.
He had 3 weeks where he didn't eclipse 69 yards. So it was the first 4 weeks of the year, 5 weeks of the year. He never even got to 70 yards. It's just the last 2 weeks he's kind of come up and done it. And then last week really put him all the way back. That was the big week. And now you're like, okay, he's a top 5 pick going forward. But yeah, I mean, even the first weeks, I mean, you're not really losing much. If you think about like the other guys who got drafted there, like CeeDee Lamb has not done better than Travis Kelce or those other guys. So yeah,
Amon-Ra St. Brown,
yeah.
I'm making a joke. All right. So the other thing was either when we were doing our drafts, people were pretty critical of taking quarterbacks early, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Jalen Hurts, right? So you had to reach into the second round to take those guys, maybe the third if you got lucky. But if you look we're halfway through the season and you look at the rankings, Chris Liss, look who's at the top: Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Jalen Hurts. So,
but they're not like destroying. So I think I think last year or some years you'd have like 3 or 4 quarterbacks, 2 or 3 quarterbacks that were like 48 touchdowns and 5,000 yards and rushing yard, 350 rushing yards and 3 rushing touchdowns. And you're like, oh, this guy was better. This guy and my crap running back was better than your quarterback and your good running back. And I'm glad I took him in the third round. But they're not winning by that much, right? They're winning by a little bit. And so I still think you were better off sort of gambling on quarterback. I mean, I had Anthony Richardson. He was good, but I kept starting him when he was hurt. Kirk Cousins, the bad one I had Danny Downs, but I have Goff in the stake league. I mean, that panned out for me mostly. It's just I just was making bad lineup decisions, which is a problem though. It's the risk you take by getting multiple QBs because you don't pull out Josh Allen to your lineup. You don't take that risk of screwing up the starting, but I still would rather stream the QBs and get the running back receivers there.
But think about who a lot of people landed on if they didn't take those guys. You landed on Calvin Ridley or T. Higgins or Najee Harris or, up until last week, Jahmyr Gibbs, Ramondre Stevenson. Those are the guys you were taking.
True. There are a lot of busts. I mean, you could say that the QBs are they're not like putting up ridiculous numbers, but they're more reliable. So when you're drafting, like, okay, there's probably going to be a running back or receiver here that's going to net, given replacement value, be better than the quarterback I'm taking. But the chances that I get that guy are lower than the chances that this quarterback is one of the top 3 quarterbacks. So I get it. That's, I think that I would frame it that way. But look, Tua was going pretty late, 8th, 9th round.
Right, but only one team can get him. Right. You know what, though? You're right about Tua, though, because you could have taken him in the 7th round if you wanted him. You didn't have to wait to the 9th round. You could take him anytime you wanted to.
I'm looking at it, and like, I guess, like, you got Cousins, been really good. Purdy was good until the last couple of weeks. I don't know. The difference with QBs is every QB that's starting gets opportunity. And so when you have a QB in your lineup, he can always get 3 touchdowns and 300 yards. Whereas the running backs you get in the 10th, 11th round typically don't even have a job. They don't even have an opportunity. And so, that's, but you can also get whipsawed and keep starting the wrong QBs like I did in my prime time too. So it goes both ways.
I want you to pick out 1 or 2 games that your number was a little different against the spread here. And I am just going to, I too much of this. So I have to do my quick pee break here. Right. I can't hold it for 40 minutes. I'm like an old man. So pick out 1 or 2 and I'll be right back in 20 seconds.
Okay. All right. So I don't really care about that because the 2 that were 4 points off that I had, they were around the 0 number, which is basically like I had the Giants as I guess that they're 1.5 point favorites. They're 2.5 point dogs, but anything that's between 2.5 and 2.5, minus 2.5 and plus 2.5, that 5 point span is not much because 3 is the key number. So as long as it's under 3, it doesn't matter. And the same thing with Jaguars Steelers. I thought that the Steelers should be favored at home. And in fact, the Jaguars are laying wood on the road. That doesn't move the needle. So then besides that, I was within 2 points on every game. So the two where there's a disparity don't mean anything because they're around 0 and they don't get to 3. So it's like, does it really matter that I had the Giants as 1.5 point favorites and they're actually 2.5 point dogs? It doesn't really matter because it's neither of them. If it hits 3, it matters. If it's below 3, you're basically just to pick them, right?
Yeah. I got people telling me to hold my pee in the chat here. It's starting to spill over into the thing. So what was your game? What was the one that you're picking?
Well, none of them based on my lines, but basically me doing the guessing the lines, it's not to find the games. It's just to like start the process of looking at it. And I'm on a heater. You know, last week I went 5-0 on one of my sets of picks and 4-1. I was 9-1 last week on my super contest picks, and I'm above 500 in both now. And so it's starting to heat up.
Cool.
I'm just going though based on feel. I'm not, to me, like if you start doing they're net YPA against, that's all shit. It's all shit. Like there's no edge.
You notice that some people when they don't get the nuances from watching the games, so they rely on the data.
You can rely on anything, but okay, go ahead. Finish your point.
Yeah, I was just going to say, like, there's people that I know that when they do a podcast, right? Like, they have to have everything regimented out. It has to be totally outlined. Whereas I scribble down a few notes and I'm just like, I could feel it going. I know what to ask. And this, some people can nuance it out. Other people need to like look at data or script things out in order to have their thoughts organized and come to a conclusion.
I mean, it's certainly possible that your model or your rearrangement of all these key stats could come upon some indicator that was missed by the public markets. With the NFL betting markets are so gigantic that somehow there's a bad number there or something. But I feel like that is possible, but almost certainly the amount of work I'm willing to put into it. Maybe if I was like 22 and I was in my college dorm smoking weed every day and just trying to figure out games. A real man. I might come up with something over a year of just like tinkering, but like, there's just no way me looking at some basic indicators is going to get me anywhere. There's just no point in me even thinking about it. And so it's just a feel thing. Right. And so I just kind of take the pulse of the league where it's like, this team just won. They're getting more confidence. They're a young team. This team just lost. They had to travel. This is kind of ebb and flow of the league. And people say, well, if that worked, you could just get a formula, but it's not a formula. It's just more of a feel based on different indicators at different times. And so the ones that jumped out at me is Lions just lay the wood. They'll win by 3 touchdowns, 5 touchdowns, whatever. The football team against the Eagles, they just seem to play them tough, and they just lost to the Giants. The Eagles just beat the Dolphins, which are a good team. I think the line's going to overcorrect for that. And then I have a little bit of a lean on the Seahawks against the Browns. The Browns won just an incredibly lucky game. And I'm sort of fade the emotion, fade the drama. And then obviously Watson's not playing. So it was Seahawks, football team, and Lions were my leans. And I'll probably come up with a couple others tomorrow.
All right. A couple other fantasy notes. I see people picking up Kyler Murray in there. Okay. I mean, and it's obviously in a super flex league, a 2-quarterback league, that's no brainer. He probably should already be on your team a week or two ago, but you really see him being a fantasy factor coming off the ACL, given what his game is. What do you think? I guess the upside was he's always been like a top 6 fantasy quarterback.
Well, it's that this league is, it's not NFFC. So it's 6 points per rushing touchdown, 4 for passing. And then it's a point every 25 yards passing, but 10 yards rushing. It's not 20. So it's a league that favors running quarterbacks a lot. And so I don't think he gets back in unless he's willing to run. I don't think they're going to put him in an NFL game unless he's going to play his game. They're not going to make him into a pocket passer. They would just let him sit out the year and come back next year. I don't see a guy who's that size and stature just dropping back in the pocket, right? Like either he's playing or he's not. And so I just blew the rest of my fab. Actually, I had Goff and Purdy.
Who's the rest of this fab guy you're talking about?
Kyle Murray.
You said he blew the rest of your fab. So he isn't one of your
Chunks is my dog. Yeah.
That's right. There you go.
But I just was like, you know what? Like this guy for this format could be a difference maker. And I have Goff and Purdy, and I'm dropping Purdy with the concussion. You can't really carry 3 quarterbacks, but I just thought, okay, this is like in this format, this guy's worth it. But in the NFFC, I wasn't like trying to pick him up or anything. I think it's a longer shot that he's a difference maker there.
Right. I lost Fields in an NFFC, and I didn't see Murray. They need to do like by projection. I don't know. I got to figure out because I basically just missed.
Well, you
out
can
on
sort
Murray.
by owned. You can sort by percentage owned.
That's it.
So sort by points and sort by percentage owned.
That's it.
You also, like when you're doing your free agents, you can sort by points in week 7. So you just like get immediately to the top. So you're like, if anything changed,
that I know. I know. The week 7.
There's only 2 things that you really need to sort by: is week 7 and percentage owned, because then you get what people thought before week 7. Percentage owned won't cover what happened last week, and then you update it with week 7, and then you're good.
Yeah, because I have Fields in one team where I'm in first or second in my league, and I'm starting Geno, which is fine, but Murray has at least 25-point upside, whereas Geno is like 18-point upside.
Right? Yeah.
Couple more quick notes here, but before we finish our fantasy discussion, just want everybody to know you can go over right now. If you love Chris Liss's content, go over to realmansports.com. He posts everything there, including Chris Liss podcasts, which is not sports related, more social commentary, political stuff. So what do you got coming up on the Chris Liss podcast this week?
This one might be like off-putting to people. I got to edit it. It's just, I started talking,
You're the worst promoter of your own stuff. You know that?
This one might be off-putting. You might not want to listen to it. I feel like, no, if I post it means I believe in it, but it might be off-putting. Stop calling me. She's calling me again. Hold on.
Go ahead. So I'll promote it for you.
I said, if you really want, I can go. And she's like, no. She's probably got them to say if I friggin' take an Uber there.
While Liss is tending to family matters here, I was going to let everybody know, if you enjoy videos like this, you can do us a favor by, or if you're so compelled, to hit the like button, subscribe to the RotoWire YouTube channel. Also, if you love fantasy basketball, RotoWire just launched a new fantasy basketball YouTube channel, RotoWire Fantasy Basketball. I'll link it in this video when I'm done, or it's also linked on the main RotoWire YouTube page. Right now, you can get behind RotoWire's paywall for free. All our rest of season rankings, everything that goes behind a paywall. You can just see it, check it out for free. Just go to rotowire.com/try. That's rotowire.com/try. And just put in your email and the paywall unlocks for a couple days. What we'll do also is I was going to take a couple questions from the chat. If you have a start, sit question, you could pop it in there while we're waiting for a list. But also, some of the guys that I was looking at this week, if Tyreek Hill does not play, I know that's in danger, and a lot of teams that are in first place really is Braxton Berrios. The targets have to go somewhere. So I was just looking at a couple like the deeper league guys that I'm picking up this week. Berrios, guaranteed nothing, but if you can get 5 catches for 50, 60 yards, you're happy there. I picked up Pierre Strong, the running back on the Cleveland Browns. I noticed that, he was being picked up for lower amounts of fab. In some leagues, he was not picked up. And we'll see.
So annoying. I mean, she's like calls, interrupts the podcast. I try to call her back, doesn't answer. It's just like, freaking answer your phone if you're going to call, Text me next time. I got some shit to say though also. But anyway, my podcast, I haven't edited it yet, so I don't know if I'm going to release it even. Sometimes
what is the main topic? What's the overall thing that you said?
Dopamine. The idea and the point of work. I don't know if you saw, there was this like TikTok video that was going around Twitter of this like Gen Z sort of ditzy kind of girl. And she's like, oh man, a 9-to-5 job. It's like ridiculous. Like I have no time and I've got to go back and you got to commute. So I get off at 5, but I'm not home till 6. She's going on. And there's a lot of comments like, oh, we're doomed. Like these people don't even want to work. But I actually agree with this other guy who was saying like, no, she's like pointing out something valid, which is that 9-to-5 jobs suck. And the whole industrialization, the whole industrial area, in the industrial age, where you were sort of trained to go to school to get a factory job and like regiment you like that. That's kind of a relic, and that's not good for most people's,
Having done both in my lifetime, having been on the Long Island Railroad, commute to Manhattan, and did the whole thing, and it's the worst. So then now working from home, I could attest that it's,
of course, you're wasting all this time. It's horrible, right?
Yeah.
But anyway, she's just expressing that in a ditzy way. So they didn't like the delivery or the messenger. But they're like, but I was saying, I was relating that to like, the larger thing about how I don't have a job anymore. I don't have any job. I have my own job of doing this. And I'm saying like, I just now, after 2 years, I'm starting to feel like just not even like, just
you're comfortable with it. You're more comfortable with it.
Yes. Now. After 2 years of like not being like, well, I've got to do 10 extra things because otherwise I'm doing nothing. I feel like I'm doing more now than I was doing then, but it's like voluntary. It's
you're
all voluntary.
untraining your brain because you grew up in an era where you put on your overcoat and your tie and you went, I mean, you never did those traditional things, especially,
I did in law school. I went to the attorney general's office for summers and stuff. Yeah. But not,
right.
Yeah.
But you also built a company and all that kind of stuff. So, but yeah, so you've had enough, I always make the joke, like we're part of a generation that grew up without the internet and with the internet. We were literally the bridge between the two. And the generation, there was over the last few years, if you're in your 30s, you grew up commuting and now working from home. There's like that bridge of two different dichotomies. And I like how you're relating it too, that you're saying like, your brain is trained a certain way, and now you're waking up. You're in a sense to, hey, this is like how you're supposed to live.
Yeah, but it's weird though, because if you have no external counterparty, who's like, Alan, where's that podcast or whatever? I mean, I have subscribers, but I say in Real Man Sports, like, don't count on anything. Like, you subscribe if you want. That's my pitch. Yeah. I'm not promising you're going to win your league. I'm not promising you're going to get anything. And if you don't like it, then don't subscribe. Don't re-up. I mean, It's up to you. I don't want to. I'm not on the hook. I mean, I feel responsible. The one terms of service I have is I won't bullshit you. I'm not going to fake it. So you'll get that, but that's it, right? And so basically, I was just talking about how. You'd think like, okay, well, I'm free now. I can go party, but like I haven't been drinking in the last couple of months. I read this book called Alcohol Explained, and I already knew all this stuff, but I was like, it wasn't like I wrapped my car around the tree or anything like that. I just was like, or, woke up in the park naked with a dead prostitute. Nothing like that happened. I just was like, I was just, Real Man does that. I was just like, you know what, like, what's the point? Like, I don't even care anymore. Like, I don't need this prop in front of me. And then I'm like going to the track like a maniac, and I'm like, and they're like, oh, you're one of those guys now, one of those like freaks who likes running. No, I hate running. I hate it more than the average person, Yeah. But I do it because I hate it, but I like the hate. I've gotten used to I like this feeling of like this is painful. Like, what is this pain consist in? Can I observe this? Like how? And I started to like things that are not comfortable emotionally, physically. And I'm starting to try to like that, and I'm like living, and I'm saying shit, whatever's on my mind. I'm even on this thing, like, well, you don't know where this is going to go, and you don't know where it's going to go on the podcast. And that's what I just feel like that's what I'm doing. Am I helping people? Who the hell knows? I don't know. I'm just saying what I think that's on my mind that I think is true. And so that's what the podcast is. And I'm talking about that on the podcast, and it leads to some places that people probably won't love, because it starts to question, not just like, oh, well, I need to be successful. I need to have status. You need money. You need money for freedom. You definitely want to make money. I do make money because you don't want people to be able to boss you around, save money.
Hold on. But, yeah, I was going to say there's a part, make money, but live 2 tiers below your means at all times.
Yeah. Make money and save money and be a free person. But status and all the other bullshit, like, you don't need that. That's just dopamine in your brain. That's just like, good boy. Like, you tell your dog, good boy, when he does the right thing. That's just society patting you on the head and saying, good boy. It's not worth anything to you unless you can monetize it somehow, which is good only because that will give you more freedom where you don't even need any of that stuff. And when you start to get deeper into that, like the dopamine, like, oh, like this, I'll go out and get some drinks and fine wine and do this because that'll make me feel good. Or I'll, and you realize like none of that is important at all to your well-being or happiness or enjoyment of anything, really. Right. Like, and so that's why it's going to put some people off, because all the things that people are like want to do and are trained to do, and that I'm trained to do, and I'm the same way as everybody else. I'm just like, why do I need this? And you think, oh, you're free. You don't need to do this. You don't need to go to work. Why don't you just party your ass off? Why don't you go, take a big vacation? I'm going on vacation on Saturday, so I may not be here next week, by the way. And I'm like, kind of like, we got to go there. I just want to do my thing that I'm doing already. I don't need a vacation. I'm not running away from anything. The weekend, what's the difference? It's not like an escape from my crappy week of commuting and doing some shit job I hate. I don't need that. So like, I don't need time off. I don't need this. I don't need a break. A break from what? A break from just being myself. That's it. I don't need that.
Yeah, I remember, and a lot of what you said there on the drinking podcast definitely resonated with me. My wife stopped drinking 2 years ago. Like, she's like, and we were every night, like we're six night a week drinkers, right? Like I've cut it back, and it's not just about what you're having there. I'm still going 2 nights a week. Drinking alone, not as fun though. I can tell you that. Right?
A real man drinks alone. Real man never drinks with anyone else.
That's what I do. But she just said, doesn't like the way it makes her feel. And it's not like in the moment, because in the moment, that first drink, you're always feeling good. It's like that little buzz, but it's the next day. It's eating crappy the next day. It's the lack of production. Not that you're not doing what you need to do, but versus what you could be doing. Little sharp things on your work.
Well, I always thought about the compound interest of how many hungover days I had and what I would have been doing, what I've been learning about or experiencing, and just over decades of like just being hungover and barely mailing it in, the things you had to do, but like, just all right, I got to go back to sleep, or I'm just sitting on my couch even though I can't sleep because my nerves are too jangled, but there's nothing I can do, or I'm watching some shit TV. But that wasn't it. I already knew all that. What the book was so convincing about was it's like your subconscious works in such a way that, like, as you said, when you take that first drink, you're like, I'm relaxed. And so you associate alcohol with that feeling of relaxation. But actually the reality is that like, that's very short-lived. So you got to get more, right? And the reason why, like, if you've drunk for a while, like me, I could drink 10 beers and I'm fine, like totally functioning, and it's like, well, how is that possible? If you drank 10 beers the first time you ever drank, you'd be dead. You'd be on the floor,
Yeah.
They said Richard Burton, the actor, drank 3 liters of spirits a day. Not maybe 1 liter. I don't know. He said 3, 1 liter of spirits, like a bottle of bourbon every day. Like that would just kill you if you had never drunk. So how are you? Your body adapts, right?
Yeah.
And it adapts by making you more sensitive. So alcohol is a depressant. It desensitizes you. So your body gets more sensitized. And so that's why you're hungover, because it wears off and you've got all this. That's why light and noise and you're hungover. It's like intolerable because you're so sensitized to like function while you're drinking. And then the alcohol wears off and you're like, ugh. And then basically he's saying that like everyone has a baseline level of anxiety, but all of this oversensitization from drinking so much to compensate for the drinking makes you like more anxious and more jangled. And so then like you're basically constantly drinking because your subconscious is only associated with that first bit of relaxation, when on net you're actually less relaxed as a person generally. And it's just true. And I knew it was true, but I just, I like drinking. So I just started like realizing, like, and he's like, all the good times you have when you're drinking, it usually wasn't because you were drinking. It's usually just because you're having a good time and you happen to be drinking. So I'm not trying to preach to anybody. I don't give a shit. I go out with a restaurant, friends. I'll even take a sip of the wine. I'm not trying to start a streak of sobriety. And if I have a beer, I don't care.
You don't want your coin?
No, I don't want any of this stuff. I don't care. It's not about that. It's just pointless to me. That's all. Yeah. And,
what if you did like a Vegas weekend? Would you,
I don't know. Maybe not. I don't even care about that though. It's like the conversation you have. That's a good conversation with your friend, like in Vegas, and you're like, oh, it was fun. We had a cigar. It wasn't really a cigar or the booze that made it a good conversation, but you just all the marketing, all the associations you have make it seem like it's about those things, but it's actually about just hanging out with your friend in a place. It wouldn't have to be Vegas. Vegas is a shithole. Yeah,
human connection. Yeah.
It's just a personal thing. Having a good conversation is good. And just because you had a cigar and a bourbon with it, you feel like, oh, the cigar and bourbon, that's what it's about. And now, again, I love a cigar and a bourbon, and I'm not saying I'll never have one. I'm just saying it's so much of it is just this subconscious conditioning that's not real.
Yeah. The other thing I have on my list, and by the way, I love that because, I've given it some serious thought, and, it's just not to mention,
if I were you, I would definitely keep drinking. I would increase.
Your over internal health, weight loss, bloatiness, all that stuff.
Everything is, the way you eat, as you said, like afterward, you're wasted. You're like, got to eat some shit, whatever,
Different topic here, and I don't need you to get deep because you do this kind of stuff on the Chris Liss podcast, but I was just watching a documentary on President Kennedy. Yeah. And, they're talking about the chaos of the world with like Cuban Missile Crisis and Bay of Pigs, all that stuff. And it seems like, what people right now with current events think like the world is in the worst state it's ever been. It seems like it was in just a bad state then with nuclear threat and all that kind of stuff now. So I guess over the last 60 years, because all that stuff happened 60 years ago, do you think it's like a similar, or do you think like there's like an elevated threat right now? Do you think we're any better or worse off or the same as we were in 1960, given all the stuff that Kennedy and Russia and all that stuff?
I think about this all the time. Like, are things crazier now, or have they always been this crazy and we're just more informed now, so we have an idea about it? But the answer is I don't know. Do you know the book, The Fourth Turning? Have you ever heard that? The Fourth Turning? It's a theory that every 4 generations we have a crisis. Okay. And it's,
what's a generation? Is it 20
like
years?
22 years, 22 years. So it's like every 80 to 90 years. Revolutionary War, right? Then Civil War, then the Great Depression through World War II, and now we're in the next one. And basically it's generational. Like there's like a heroic win, the revolution or the Civil War's over. And then there's like a period of prosperity after that for like 20 years. And then there's like in the 60s, there's a period of rebellion and whatever. And he has names for each thing. And then there's a period of like decadence, like starting the 80s and 90s. And then you have the crisis, which started, they think
9/11.
No, not actually 9/11, in the 2008 financial crash, where basically the system started collapsing. And this crisis is what, ends up being, you had World War II. It's pretty serious. And these things are cyclical. And but they're very seismic. They changed the landscape forever. I mean, they founded the U.S. They broke away from England, had a huge war, then Civil
ended
War,
slavery, and
ended slavery, and a million people died in the Civil War, like by bayonet. I mean, it was serious. And World War II and the Depression. I mean, this stuff is big, and this is where we're at now. The whole COVID thing and lockdowns and forced medicine, all this stuff. This is coming now. And so it's pretty serious. Now, is it worse nuclear-wise? I mean, they said it was pretty close then. I don't know. But the only thing that gives me pause is I feel like however treacherous the ruling class was in the 60s or whatever, which I'm sure it was, the incompetence level now and just the blatant, the shameless patheticness and what they've done and what they're not willing to be held to account. I feel like now.
You think they were more competent back then? It seemed like, according to this documentary, that all the war cabinet was like warmongers, and the only thing stopping them was Kennedy and having a dialogue with Khrushchev.
I mean, most likely the CIA took him out, right? And right. I mean, that's like, that was the end of like our democracy in a way, because it's now, that they like the guy who was like, I'm again, I'm gonna. He said, I'll scatter the CIA into the winds, and a little bit later he was murdered. But anyway, the point is that I don't know. I mean, maybe they were just as bad, but the people that are like sort of opining and pontificating, with power in our politicians, and they seem to be like the lowest, most incompetent, and just dishonest class of politicians I've ever seen in my lifetime. And in the 60s, it might have been just as bad. I don't know. I mean, Nixon in the 70s and late 60s obviously was pretty bad. So maybe it is the same. I don't know. I think about that a lot, and I don't know the answer. But I do think it's not worth being anxious over it. I think it's worth saying what's on your mind about it. But I don't think it's worth like, I mean, what are you going to do? I mean, nuclear war.
I feel safe and like when I was living in New York City, I have to admit there was times I didn't feel safe, and it was probably all in my own mind. Post 9/11, you're looking at everybody funny that's in the subway. You feel like trapped like a rat in the subway. But living in like a tertiary city like Jacksonville,
I would take out Jacksonville first. Get rid of Seslowsky.
There's a naval base right down the road from me too, with all the fighters right there. Like that's where they launch from. So I feel good. I'm protected. No,
that's what they would attack. But
that's true. That's true.
But anyway, who knows about? This is like wild speculation. There's also like unknown unknowns. Like if the price of Bitcoin were to get really, really high, really quickly, that would change a lot of power in the world very quickly. And something like that, you'd be like, oh, well, who cares? How would that affect geopolitics? It would affect geopolitics, because who has the money really is who calls the tune. And it would be a massive transfer of wealth. It sort of drains out of the system. If you could have like a central bank digital currency where they control where all the money is, really like, there's no drain out of the system. They can spend on wars and go into debt and have $33.5 trillion in debt. And yet they still control the money. They just dilute you. Yeah. But if there's like if there's a leak in the boat and it's going into this other place, suddenly the power shifts, because what's money? It's just the energy. It's claims on the energy of the world. And so if the claims go to other portions and you're like, okay, let's go do this world war. And you're like, yeah, but we're now $100 trillion in debt and we can't fund it. It's sort of like, okay, well then it just doesn't happen.
That's the one thing that scared me. Like, again, I'm just trying to pay attention. And the thing that Biden said, that when they asked him, I'm sure you saw this clip floating around, when they said, do you think that we can keep up wars in multiple fronts all over the place? And he goes, his answer was like, we're the United States of America, man. Like, it was like, of course we can. Right. That scared me a little bit.
But I don't, I mean, look, this is a RotoWire podcast, but like, I'm just very surprised. I would be very surprised if anything's really his decision at this point. I mean, I know, I have some family that's a lot older, and they shouldn't be driving at this point. And like there's this, you shouldn't be. So I think there's somebody else making decisions, but it's scary, and it's even worse because there's less accountability. For if he's just this guy who can just kind of like be saying whatever he's supposed to say, but he's not really accountable anymore.
Yeah. Well, when they said that he's going to meet with the leader of, again, we'll get back on the football here.
Yeah.
When he said he's going to potentially meet with how do you say the leader of China's name? Xi Jinping? Is that how you say it? Yeah. That he's going to potentially meet with him. I was like, no, please, somebody else be in the room too.
Right.
Even if it's Gavin Newsom, I don't care.
No.
I know what you're saying, but at least it's somebody.
He'd be like, here's the United States. Have it. It's yours.
Well, you see, he just met with Xi Jinping.
I know, but why? Like, what's he even doing? Like, I don't know. I want to get into that. I don't even care. I don't pay attention to I hear it, but like I don't really get into like the squabbles over like your team, my team, whatever. I'm more for me, I'm more like the ruling class that we currently have, which is the politicians and people to whom they, their clients, the tech and banking and pharmaceuticals and military industrial. Those people are like, it seems to be like the lowest quality that I can remember, but maybe I was just more in the dark before. I didn't pay as much attention.
I think that's what it was. I think they were always like that. But it reminds me of what you just said of the old George Carlin joke. And he basically says, like, he's talking about the ruling class, and he goes, "It's a club and you ain't in it." It's the rest. So very interesting.
There's unpredictable stuff. That's the one thing is like, it's like a football game. We're like, oh, they're going to kill them. They'll run the ball and they won't have us. It's like we're doing that with geopolitics, and it's like it's certainly trending in a bad direction, but like the game is so unpredictable and it's complex system, and I think just it's really dangerous to be, too whatever.
You know what I rewatched? I'm sure you saw this once in your life. It's a Nostradamus sort of like documentary of its time. It was with Orson Welles as the host. It was called The Man Who Saw Tomorrow. Did you ever see this?
I didn't see it. No, I never did.
Yeah, 1981, and it was Orson Welles hosting, and he goes through Nostradamus's predictions, and then he, in 1981 they were predicting the Third World War, which would be between the Middle East. It would team up with Russia against the United States, and even around 9/11, like there was like a lot of stuff floating around, like, oh, this is it, the end of the world. So anyway, I've been getting not anxious about it, just more like concerned, and I was wondering. Again,
you should be. I mean, it's concerning, like this, what's going on. It's very concerning. And the thing that concerns me the most is like, we have 33.5 trillion in debt. That money you have in your bank account, it's just digital bits saying, this is what you have. And what does that mean? It means, well, if I wanted to use it for something, I could. But if we all wanted to use it for the things that we think that it would be worth, if you have 100K in your bank account, you think, okay, I could put a down payment on a small house. Or if I have 20K, I could, get a car, or 30K, I could get a car. If we all wanted to do that, there wouldn't be houses and cars for that price. It's not representing what it purports to represent. It's just digital bits in your account. And they've stolen the money. It's an IOU that they can't pay you back, right? They can, if you want to spend $100 here or there and people just going out to dinner, yeah, okay. But in mass, they can't pay you back. So if you siphoned off all the money to yourself and your cronies, and also like got in a medical situation, I won't get too much into this, where there's all sorts of ill consequences now. You might want to start a war to sort of avoid
distraction. Not
just it's the Wag the Dog movie, but like more like to just avoid not just a temporary distraction, but like you can only lie for so long. You could only mislead people for so long before truth comes up. And as it comes up, you're going to get got unless you just create even a bigger problem that they have to focus on first, basically. Yeah. That's what worries me.
So. Last question, and then I'll let you go. Why is Bitcoin, in your judgment, popped up over the last month or so? I think last I checked, it was at like 34-ish last time.
About 34.
It'd been sitting at like 25, 29 for a while. Anything that's happened in that market that could have done that? I'm not saying that.
Well, there's rumors that an ETF is going to be approved.
What does that mean?
BlackRock, an exchange traded fund, so that you could like buy into this fund that underneath it would have Bitcoin, and own a share of the Bitcoin that was in the fund. And they would need to get 200 billion worth to launch this ETF. And just put it this way, that I think something like 70 million of Bitcoin or 100 million of Bitcoin got bought the last couple of days, and it sent the price up, the market cap of Bitcoin up another like 100 billion. So this guy estimated it's like almost 200 to $1 invested in Bitcoin, and the market cap of Bitcoin going up 200 to 1. Well, now do the math on 200 billion going in there at 200 to 1. You're talking about what, 40 trillion, right? So gold is 10 trillion, the market cap. So you're talking about Bitcoin being like 2 million a coin if this happens. And that's not including the FOMO that would happen if that started happening in nation states and everything else. I'm not saying that's going to happen short term. Nobody knows where the price is going. Nobody should mislead you into saying they know in 6 months or a year or 3 months where it's going.
Yeah.
But basically, like, there's this ETF supposedly going to get approved soon. And if they have to scoop up that many coins, and there's obviously very limited supply, that's the feature of it. People are now trying to front run them also. So that's why it's at like 34 now. And, but there's no real upper bound on it, except the total amount of money in the world that's used as savings. So, again, I don't want to make any short-term predictions, I would say long-term, it's the setup is pretty bullish.
Last thing, final
I got one
thing
for you after this, but yeah.
Sure. I was saying, did you see I didn't see it yet, but Dumb Money. It's that the movie they made about the GameStop.
I didn't. I saw like a trailer for it. But,
yeah. Someone told me to see it, so I was curious if you'd saw it. All right. What's your one thing that you have?
So if you want to read a great book, it's called Broken Money by Lynn Alden. It's a great book. It explains the financial system and really like opens your eyes to like how it works. It's kind of futile to explain somebody, oh, here's Bitcoin and here's why I should get it. Just explain the financial system and then you'll understand it.
I heard you talking about it on your last podcast. That was interesting.
Yeah. It's really good book. But the other thing is, so I did a fantasy basketball draft last night with Sasha.
I read your article on Real Man Sports, by the way.
So, but I don't know, like, because I don't know anything, right? How did we do, Alan? Did we do well? Do we have a good team? Are we a contender? What's your opinion?
Yeah, well, your team definitely is older. Let's say
so
that.
Old. But our first two picks were Steph Curry and Durant. Durant never goes in the second round. Our free throw percentage is like locked. But I mean, Tim Duncan, Kevin Duncan, Kevin Garnett, they were out of the league at 33. Like,
yeah, but it's different now. Medicine, they don't play. Here's your danger is load management stuff, which, by the way, this is a good year to buy the load management players because it's now like a talked about subject where Adam Silver, the commissioner, is being pressured to really penalize the players. And Charles Barkley has been coming out saying, hey, you're making $40 million a year. There's no load management. You're basically a nutless monkey if you do that. Right. So now these guys are getting shamed into playing. So your load management, if like a Curry was going to play like 68 games, he might play like 74 now.
Right. Well, I mean, but is load management good though, because they don't get injured as much? Because
not for fantasy. For fantasy, you just want them playing. Just play.
But they're going to get injured. Okay. But so I got, so Durant and Curry, these are 35-year-olds. But I got Westbrook in like the 11th round because I had such good free throw percentage that I was like, he had 13 assists last night. I'm like, I need the counting stats. And then I got like Siakam and I got Paul George. And I got a bunch of old guys, like really old guys. Oh, Brooke Lopez that Sasha wanted to get. And I think that was a mistake, that pick. But
my favorite part of your article that you wrote about your basketball draft with your daughter was that you Mr. Miyagi'd her made her do all the work that like about putting together depth charts and this and that. And at the end you threw it out and you made her draft using ADP positional categories, which was great. And the comparison you made was that Mr. Miyagi made Daniel's son wax all the cars and had nothing to do with karate, except it did because it got him like thinking, how to block. And
how is she going to learn the player pool unless she does something like that, right? She made notes on everybody, so now she knows the player pool, so she could have an opinion on all these guys, and like if she just like if we just downloaded the cheat sheet and went, she would just I tried.
Great job. Thanks for all those.
You think the team? I don't care.
Yeah, I think it's good. I think you're gonna like I said, if the only thing working against you, which I like this is the load management thing, but I think it's the perfect year to be in the old guy business because you got an all-star team. If this team, you wouldn't be able to put this team together 4 years ago. And these guys, Curry, Durant, all these guys, they tend to age better. Right. And their games age better for
skinny guys too. Durant is very slight.
Yes. I like your team. And especially since again, at the end, it's like in football, when everyone's building running back heavy teams, you go wide receiver. Everyone wants to take these new young guys who are unproven. You're going with like the proven vets. I mean, I'm surprised you didn't land LeBron James.
We could have in the fourth. We took Siakam over him. I mean, LeBron's 38. I mean, we could have. It would have been cool.
See the numbers he put up in 29 minutes on opening night?
Could you imagine if we might have done it? Could you imagine if we had Curry, Durant, LeBron, like three inner circle, and Westbrook, but the three guys are inner circle Hall of Famers. I got Bradley Beal who's hurt in round 7. I've tried to get
he'd be around 5 guy.
Paul George, I got in round 5,
Once you're going 33. Yes, I like your team. I think that you have you can win your league, and then who the hell knows once you get into the stuff. So good stuff. Did you tell her the upside? Your 11.5-year-old daughter, what's going to happen if you guys win the grand prize? I mean,
I told her how much money is. She's saying I want 500, I want 700. I said, well, we'll see how much work you do, because the setting the lineups is, I just realized something I didn't know, is that like baseball,
Daily.
you can set the Friday, it's not daily, but Friday to Sunday lineup.
Mm.
And that sucks. Like, come on,
Yeah.
dude, I'm traveling. I can't have time to look at that shit.
Yeah, Greg and Tom, they figured out what's best for the game. All right.
Yeah. All right.
As the more basketball talk goes on, I see our viewership going down, but that's fine. I love basketball, and we will not pander to the audience.
No, never.
All right. Great job by you. Who are you picking this week? You're taking the Lions and Survivor.
Taking the Lions, and my spread picks I thought were Seattle, Washington, and the Lions.
Okay. All right. You go follow Chris Liss on Noster. Is it Noster or Noster?
I think there's debate about that. Some people say the Noster.
You were kind. I was calling it Noster last week, so you Nostered with me. But I hear on your podcast you call it Noster. So I was like, he didn't correct me. He's making me.
I think your way was actually correct, but I just say it the way it occurred to me when I first read it, and then. Okay.
So you follow him.
It's an acronym, it's an acronym. It's not a name. So
yes, you follow him there. You follow him on Tuesdays on Twitter at Chris_Liss. Realmansports.com is really the place to find all of Chris Liss's content. I'm at Alan Seslowsky. You can go to RotoWire, get behind our paywall 2 days free, RotoWire.com/try. Chris Liss might be traveling next week, so we're not sure if we'll be back. Maybe we'll figure out a time and day to do it. Other than that, we're here every Thursday until Chris Liss has no more Survivor teams left or anything to talk about.
That's right.
So that probably will be to the end of the season because you're going to win it all.
I agree with that, Alan.
All right, everybody. We'll see you next week. Goodbye.